Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming, and we'll jump in right away. Let the record reflect, please, that all members of the council are present, and we'll move straight to our city administrator update, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's been a wild year. Here we are. We finally made it to December. Really proud of our team and what we've been able to accomplish this year. It's been a struggle with all the COVID procedures, and then a few employees going out on the leave here and there. But we've all persevered, and I think most of our services have not missed a beat throughout it all. So I'm pretty proud of everybody and how they've handled it. And we're going to continue to keep up, our pandemic management plans and protocols, and really strengthen it a little bit as we go into this winter season, where we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in the general population around here with COVID. But we'll continue to keep City Hall and some of our other offices closed to the general walk-in traffic of the public. That goes for the public works areas, the police department, fire department. But in the meantime, we've been able to kind of transform ourselves into having a little bit more of a robust online platform, a lot better forms access. Drive-through has been a blessing here for us to have. But, we're going to continue to try to just keep up the good work there and try to keep those numbers tamped down as best we can in the future. Otherwise, we're just, winding down a lot of big projects, trying to get those to the finish line while we're planning the next slate of other projects for the coming year and a half. But we've got a lot on the plate still to finish up this year. So appreciate all y'all's support behind us throughout this year. It means a lot. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Probst? Hearing none, Central Services, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. Couple of quick things. Month of November, facilities and grounds collected 2,800 pounds of trash, just picking up right-of-ways downtown. Leaf collection, Mr. Steele can probably hit on that a little bit too, is staying pretty well on schedule, I think. We got our leaf trailer in November 23rd, which was 2 days earlier than it was anticipated. That's a big help that was put into service yesterday. So kudos to those guys, and I think they're actually working Monday through Saturday, essentially, collecting leaves, and we've got 2 routes running. The police station, right now, we are getting close to kind of the end where we'll hit the punch list of things. Chief Watts and I actually did a walkthrough today, found a couple of issues. The biggest delay is going to be the flooring, that they're having a hard time getting it, and it's because of raw materials and the shortage back with the shutdown early part of the year. But let's hope we're moving in first quarter of 2021. Newsletter went out the day before Thanksgiving for the winter months. And then to kind of jump on what Logan said, 2019, I'll include that along with 2020. There have been a lot of major projects that we as a city have achieved. I included a list there. There's 30 to 35 there that are, this is pretty much why we walk around and look like we hadn't had much sleep because of these. It's a lot of things that we've brought to the city, a lot of things that this council has pushed us to do. And we as staff members have pushed our guys to do, accomplish, grow this city, move us forward. By all means, read through that list. I think the mayor actually referenced this in a meeting that you had here recently.
Yes, sir.
Same thing we've kind of done in this. I just wanted everyone to be able to see what we've accomplished as a city. Even during what we've had to deal with this year and through the pandemic, it's like we haven't missed a beat. So that's same thing Logan said, hats off to everyone. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bailey? Hearing none, I do want to say, Chris, I brag about you a little bit, and I'll do it again. Over the last year, I've seen Chris Bailey walking around with a chainsaw in his hand. I've seen him with a shovel in his hand. He has helped create some efficiencies through other departments in town, and he really doesn't get a lot of sleep. But if you look at the the progress that he's made, and the team has made. Of course, Chad's helped too, with the PD, the new PD, and in our recreation of the parks. It's just gone a long way, and I appreciate you're bending over backward for us.
Thank you.
Moving to committee information, but before I jump into finance, I want to let you know that Tyler is going to be taking all of the spots that Wayne had. He's going to be Public Works, Finance, Utilities, Public Works, Finance, and Utilities. The plan for next year committee assignments is to remain pretty much the same. You know, we might tweak a spot here or there, but I do intend for Tyler to jump in as Director of Finance for that committee. Surprise. But I promise we'll all try to help, and nobody will harass you more than Nathan Little. So, moving into committee information, Finance, Mr. Little.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Ms. Thompson, would you give us the monthly financial report?
Yes, Mr. Little, thank you. You have before you the financial status report as of October 2020. Revenues and expenses as of October are tracking as expected based on budget, with the exception of the utility fund. Revenues are slightly above budget, and expenses are well below budget, which we were not sure of where revenues would fall in the utility fund because of the weather this year. So we've kind of halted on some expenses there. So that's the reason for that. In the finance department, this past month, we did close on the utility revenue bond. We did receive our first reimbursement of $5 million for previously incurred expenses through the utility CIP for those previous project expenses that we incurred since April of this year. Our loss collections in the general fund are still trending upward compared to 2019. They are actually 8% above last year at the same time. We've started receiving property tax collections from the county this month. Obviously, we haven't gotten a whole lot yet. We're about $700,000 on that so far. We've been working on as you well know, the 2021 operating and capital improvement budget. That will be before you at next week's council meeting for adoption and the public hearing. If anyone would like a hard copy of that, please let me know, and I'll be glad to print one and bind one for you. Otherwise, they'll all be electronic and also on our website once they're adopted in order to save paper. So I'm not going to print all of them, but if anyone wants one, I'll be glad to do it. And then we will obviously be rolling into audit season, the first of the year, in the finance department, and that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Beth, year-over-year sales tax revenues for last month?
8% increase.
Man, that's great.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Thompson. That's what we have, Mayor.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Garrett, Airport.
Thank you, sir. Fuel sales this year have pretty much held on par and have held pretty strong for the year. So that was the one number I wanted to point out. And then just from an administrative standpoint, our fuel tax certification, CIP submission to the state was completed yesterday, which was the deadline, November 30th. And then we have a bid coming due for the paving of the runway on December 17th that staff and engineers will review the final cost breakdown, make sure everybody's responsible on their bids, and then have that back before council for review and approval in January. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Is there any question for Chris? If not, we're done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Thank you, Norman. Moving to Mr. Dickinson, Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I've got it.
Who's doing solid waste?
I've got you.
Oh, okay.
Me again. Kind of a quick glance at everything. Numbers stayed the same as far as collection, everything in October. The one point of emphasis that Mr. Smith wanted me to make was the collection schedule for the holidays. Based on the way Christmas, or Christmas Eve falls this year, collection schedule changes. However, we may run a route potentially that Saturday, just depending on what things look like, just so we're not going through an entire holiday weekend of 4 days with no collection. And that was the only major thing of note. The other thing, I did ask Danny to make sure that this was okay. Danny's actually at home recovering from his bout with COVID. He spent Thanksgiving holidays actually in the hospital with fever and breathing ailments, but is recovering. He's home as of Friday night, and told him to take as much time as he needs to recover, get back to us, and I think he was upbeat and in good spirits. So be happy to have him back, and I'll be glad to take any questions, do the best I can.
It appears there are no questions.
Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Unless there's some direct questions from the report, I'll just go into what we got really going on right now. Chris highlighted the leaf route. We are getting closer to being on a more scheduled route with the addition of the leaf trailer. It went out Monday for the first time. The one dump is averaging about 2 tons of leaves on that little box trailer. So that's a pretty significant amount of leaves that we're able to not double up, but we're able to, in tandem with the other truck, attack it at a more aggressive pace, hopefully, to keep us more on schedule. Right now, it's still taking a couple of weeks to get through the weekly cycle. As expected, there's still a pile of leaves on the trees. There's still a pile on the ground, but those guys are working roughly 50 to 60 hours a week with that truck. So they're out and about doing what they can do. We're in the middle of our winter prep and maintenance programs for our infrastructure as well as our fleet, making sure we're good to go for the winter months with that. I was hoping to be able to give a report tonight from the Barnhart Group, the group that does our assessment of our roadways. They too have been stricken by COVID, and it delayed their presence in town a week. They'll be here this weekend. So after they're here this weekend, we go into the January meeting, I'll be able to give a full report of the data that comes back from that. Outside of that, everything's rocking and rolling. It's as steady as it can be, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
All right, it appears there are no questions, so that's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. Moving to Mr. Little, Utilities.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Thompson, the monthly electric telecom report.
Thank you, Mr. Little. The big thing to notice in the electric report is our line loss is coming down. Problem is, I'm really not sure why. Between myself, ECG, MEAG, and Beth, we've been attacking that in multiple ways. But it is dropping, and that's a good thing, but we're going to continue to try to figure out what caused it to actually go up. Other items of interest is the transformer and other material for Publix have been delivered. We are up at the Publix project right now, clearing right-of-way for the overhead line in the back, the second phase of that. We hope to start on that and have that ready for them when they show up, when they say they're going to show up in January to start building the building. Another thing you might have seen, if you go up North Madison, we changed out some poles right there around Grace Church for the second phase for their education building. We actually did the bore today to bring that pipe and wire over for the fiber and the power to that building. The design for our first projects or builds for the fiber to the premise project in the bond are underway. Hope to see first quarter-ish, we might, hopefully if we can get material, start those projects moving forward. Material is going to be an issue with this because everybody's building fiber everywhere, and the lead times are out there. We did some purchases earlier in the year to give us some fiber to be able to get started and give us a buffer of time. The other issue is the GDOT's decision to move forward, or their new right-of-way acquisition fee. We had a meeting on that for about 2 hours today. I will be going to the GDOT meeting to discuss that next month. It is a little worse than I expected. They plan on including city streets that have had state money or federal money included. It's looking positive with the board, but I'll keep y'all posted on that. And I'll take any questions you may have.
What are the odds that you're given?
We've been exempted right now, so the city is in good shape right now, but there's already people positioning themselves to file suit about that exemption because it's in conflict with some federal laws to exempt some providers and not others. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what that is, but I know that's why I think it's good for Georgia to just cut the fee completely. South Carolina doesn't have a fee. Alabama doesn't have a fee. Florida doesn't have a fee. They're trying to push broadband out into the whole state. Why Georgia is wanting to restructure their fee and make it higher on the rural areas and lower on the urban is just, I have no idea why. I can't answer that. But the odds, I think, are pretty good to beat it back.
Any other questions on the monthly report? Next item is the interparticipant transaction reserve sale.
Yes, sir, Mr. Little, I'm scrolling down to that. This is, we've done this in the past, we just haven't done it in a few years. We're required by the federal government to keep a certain amount of reserve capacity on hand. It's 15%. This year, we have a little more than we actually need. We can, by MEAG's estimates, recoup $26,000 by selling some of this capacity to Griffin, Hogansville, Mansfield, and Oxford. It is just capacity, it's not energy. It's just what we're required to keep as a backup, for lack of a better term. And I'll take any questions you may have about this.
And it is a 1 year.
1 year, yes, sir, for
Change.
2021.
Year to year.
And next year, it might not make sense to do it like it didn't last year, so we'll take this year to year.
And our capacity need or assessment is done on January 1st. So we
By
already
MEAG.
know that we have this excess.
Yes, sir.
Seems like a no-brainer to me. Do I have a motion to sell the excess reserve? Motion by Ms. Malcolm, second by Mr. Bradley. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We recommend that to full council. Next item on the agenda, Mr. Thompson's solar purchase power contract.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to ask, because we didn't get all of the documents from MEAG in time to put on the agenda, that we push this for a vote for next Tuesday for the full council. But I will explain the project and take any questions from anyone tonight. So this is an opportunity to purchase solar capacity and load to be on our network. Right now, we have nuclear, natural gas, and coal. We're 68 to 72% non-emitting, but we have no renewable resources in our portfolio. Now, at some point, we will be forced by the state or the federal government to have that renewable quotient. And what's been happening is MEAG's been negotiating for the cities, mainly for the cities that serve Walmart. Walmart has required, or they've requested that either you provide it to us from the cities, or we're going to put it on a rooftop. And so MEAG started exploring it. Well, in this environment we've had over the past few years, the cost of solar has gone down, and the people purchasing solar has basically gone away. So this project came down to about 2.5 cents fixed for 20 years, starting in 2023, for us to do 3 megawatts. Now, MEAG took those numbers and plugged those into our 20-year projections and projected us to save $1.3 million over those 20 years from buying it on the market. So y'all know me, I'm not a big renewable energy fan because it hasn't been very reliable, but if I can save $1.3 million for the citizens of Monroe, and I can get that level, which is almost, it'll be 7 or 8% of our capacity on our portfolio of renewable energy at a very good rate. I mean, that 2.5 cents is right at the bottom of the market, and we're getting that fixed for 20 years. And it's also a pay for what you get, not paying for capacity. So we will only be paying for energy we get from the project. We won't be paying for the project to sit there in the middle of the night, which is new to the solar realm for us. Now, how are these guys making money? They're making money by selling the tax credits. They build the system, they sell the tax credits, and that's how they make their, and what we pay them is just icing on the cake. And I'll take any questions you may have on this.
Quick question for you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Could a homeowner get a solar system by themselves? in
Yes,
the
sir.
city?
We have an interconnection agreement and a solar agreement package that we've had several pick it up. Right now, it's, without the tax credit, it's really not financially viable just to do a home in Georgia. And the main reason is our trees. You don't get a lot of sunshine in the majority of our town unless you go out into a new subdivision that has very few trees built there. You've got to get in looking at the cities that have done this, they put some solar panels on the roofs of their buildings. It's that 10:30, 11 to 2:30 or 3 is when you really get your energy. That's not usually when people are home. So unless you have battery storage, it's really not advantageous. We have one customer that actually has it. It's on the event center down here at the, what's actually the brewery now. That building has it on their roof. They were looking at doing battery storage to make that more efficient. I don't know if they have yet.
But the return on that is like 15 years on roof.
Without the tax credit, it's a long time. Now, they are getting more efficient. I mean, I've seen some panels now up to 37 to almost 40% efficient, and with batteries, you can get that cost down on the batteries, it starts making sense.
But did they get some tax credits for installing that?
Oh, I'm sure they did. I mean, I don't know
Good
for a
tax
fact, but
credit.
I'm almost positive
Yeah.
they did. If they didn't, it was a mistake not to get it because it was available.
Right.
Well, this green energy is something that others in the industry offer. And while we may not have much demand, at least we'll have the product to offer. And it seems like a pretty good deal overall. Is there a motion to the purchase of 3 megawatts of solar energy
Mr. Little,
through MEAG?
I'm going to push that off for next week for
Don't-
the whole council to vote.
Till you get the,
I don't have all the
you
documents yet.
don't have the contract yet?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that was just for information then.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Millbrooks, the monthly report for water, sewer, and gas.
Yes, sir. Just a couple updates on some major projects, one being the Alcovey River Highway 138 sewer. We finally received our public notice today from EPD for the stream buffer variance. So that'll be up for public comment for the next 30 days. We have a potential bid date set for January the 21st for that project. The design and review for the wastewater rehab project, EPD approved those ideas or design on the 26th of last month. And we have that proposed date of January the 8th for the bid date. And the Loganville Water Extension had a failed attempt at pulling the main under the river. Got hung up. Took them about 2 weeks to get it out. So they're in the process of back reaming some more to try to open that hole up. It's 34 inches as of today. I think they're gonna try to go to 40 and then make another attempt to pull the pipe in. And then, the last thing was, last month, we talked about the water study for the, northern end of our water system. In the, CIP, I had a $85,000 line item for a water study and model to be done this year. After talking to Wiedemann and Singleton, they had actually modeled our water system years ago. And they were able to resurrect that thing, and they're gonna do the update and the study for the northern end of town here at a price tag of $48,800. So it saved us quite a bit of money. And so from here on out, once this is updated, any extensions we do, plug them in, and they'll tell us exactly what is gonna happen to our system. So that was a good thing. If you got any questions, I'll try to answer any of those.
Sounds like a good thing. Is there any questions for Mr. Middlebrooks? If not, will you take the next item, purchase of these modules and removal too?
We mentioned this in our budget meeting. This is the modules or membranes for the water plant. Replace 180 modules and also a new removal tool. We had $66,365 in our CIP for the modules. I'm asking to move the additional money I need from another CIP item for the total of $142,750. They actually reduced the price in our budget numbers. Our CIP numbers is $800 per module. Due to the fact we're buying 180, they reduced it to $725, and they reduced a removal tool from 20 to 11.5. Quite a bit of savings.
How long are these supposed to last?
That's what I was.
If you remember, when we went to low pressure, they said to expect somewhere between 10 and 20. We're at 7.
Estimate's a little off, isn't
Yeah.
And then that company went out of business?
Well, they got bought out again. Now it's DuPont. So seems like every time it comes around, it's bought out.
Is there no protection that we negotiate in that?
They were warranted the first 4 years, I think. They was prorated then,
What about these? What is the warranty on these new ones?
a year.
A year? How many did you have go out in the first 4 years on the old, the ones that we have now?
The one we have now, first 4 years, we probably had 2.
Had a lot, didn't you?
Well, the old system now, we had some that didn't make it
system, yeah.
6 hours. We put a new one in, 6 hours later, it's gone. But that was when we were on the high-pressure system. The low-pressure system's definitely been better. Our only concern now is when we start producing more water for Loganville, is it gonna increase? We got 7 years on these 180. There's still another, there's 90 per module, there's 12 of them, so. Are they gonna start filling at a faster rate than what they are now? So we'll have to watch it.
But if you're gonna run the system, you gotta have them.
Gotta have them.
Yeah, there are no options, right?
None.
What do other water systems do? I mean, are they having the same problems we're having?
Which ain't but probably 10 of us in the United States.
I'm sorry.
So there's only about 10 of us with that.
So I'm saying
That
other
brand.
systems, they have different brands, so they're not having these problems. But we couldn't change over without changing out the whole plant.
Right. You have to change out all the equipment.
So by moving this $76,000, right, what are you not going to be able to purchase that you had?
It's just gonna come out of some, just, infrastructure repair and replacement at the water plant. I think there's about I looked a while ago, I think it's a little over 500,000 in it.
Is there a motion to purchase the 180 modules for the park?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Malcolm's not on utilities.
Oh,
I'll motion.
sorry, I'm on finance.
He made it,
Tyler
I
makes
second
it, and Mr. Larry Bradley seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We recommend the council to purchase the 180 modules.
Thank you.
Next item.
This is approval to purchase the generator. This was in our original bid contract on the water job, but we, as an addendum, and we were gonna make the decision. At the time, we were looking at powering the pump station with natural gas, since it's so much more efficient. But after going to EMC, and Brian can probably speak on this part, but after going, having EMC as a backup power, there really wasn't any savings. So we decided that we're gonna go back and go with just a diesel generator. And it'll be a backup to EMC's power.
Which is more efficient.
And it's the price tag on it from the contractor was $1,114 and, I'm sorry, $114,511. I'll get it right in a minute.
Easy for you to say.
Too many numbers.
Is there a motion?
What happened to the money that was budgeted to put the natural gas generator in?
It actually, when the way they done the bid, it was an addendum to, it was to be discussed later. They were gonna come back to it, because we wanted to try to do it with a natural gas generation. Because the money we could save, or at least we thought we could save. So, he had the numbers in the thing, but they wasn't part of the original approval. It wasn't included in it.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Bradley, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Motion's to purchase the 500 diesel generator, 114,511. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and we recommend that to full council. Just as a technicality, can we go back and the committee take another vote on item B? I think Ms. Malcolm looked at the
I did.
schedule wrong,
Sorry.
and she made the motion. So this was the interparticipant transaction reserve sale. Can we revote that? Motion by Mr. Larry Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries again. And we recommend that to council.
Thank you, Mr. Little. And in defense of Lee, she is finance, so you were talking money. She was ready to jump. Moving to Mr. Larry Bradley, please, Public Safety.
Yeah, for the fire department, we have Captain Joe Page with us tonight, and Joe, could you give that report?
On the false alarm, the fire, and the false calls, of the month of October, we had 17 actual fires, we had 6, good intent calls was 41, hazardous condition calls was 6, rescues and medical calls was 126, we had 14 service calls, a total of 208 calls. And the
Any questions for Joe? Okay. We'll move on to the police department. Captain Matt McClung, first time, I think, to be with us to give us a report tonight, so we're glad to have you with us.
Yes, sir. Tonight's my first time, but we had 1,787 calls for service in the month of October. Area checks, 8,342. That was up 5,000 from this time last year. Calls to Monroe PD, 1,684, 266 court cases, 566 training hours for our officers. Our Part 1 and Part 2 crimes were just about the same from this time last year. And we had 4 shootings in the month of October in the city of Monroe. However, all 4 of those cases, we have identified the suspects, and either they're in custody or they have warrants for those individuals at this time. They've been identified. And Joint Ops has made 12 felony arrests. Our Joint Operation Division has made 12 felony arrests that month, and one of those involved a firearm that was taken off the streets.
Any questions for Matt? Thank you, appreciate you being here tonight. That's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Larry. Planning and Code, Ms. Malcolm.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. This report covers a time period of October. It's in front of you there. You got 260 code inspections in that time frame. Had 66 permits written. On business licenses, we had 6 new businesses that opened and 3 that closed. It looks like at least one of those will be opening back up again soon in a new location. Major projects ongoing. Obviously, we all know about the apartment complex at South Broad Street. They're still pre-leasing and their percentage is going up every day, it seems like. Monroe Pavilion, obviously on hold, wait until January, but that should get rolling, no problem at all. And the Row. And Grace Monroe is one I hadn't mentioned before, but they're back in action and doing great things over there. It's really looking good. So that's another one that's one of the major projects happening right now. As far as the city marshals go, they removed 96 signs from the roadway, did 322 repair cleanup orders and re-inspections on those. They investigated 1 tampering and theft case and issued 4 citations. So that should have been pretty serious. And they completed 16 hours of post-training. The remainder of the report's there, and if you have any questions about it, we've already taken action on most of those items. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from the council? If none, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Patrick. Ross Bradley, Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Isaac, would you mind sharing with us this evening?
Be happy to. You have the report before you. A couple things to point out. Monroe has been invited to apply for the Georgia Exceptional Main Street designation with the Georgia Main Street program. So we'll be applying for that in January and be up for consideration. And if so, we'll become a GEMS downtown city within the state. We also put up a storybook walk this holiday season. This has been the year of trying new things, of just helping people find ways to be outside safely and in downtown. And we basically split up a storybook recommended by the Story Shop, and the pages are all in order on stores throughout town. So that's been fun. That walked by a mom and 3 girls doing it today. So that's kind of fun and an easy thing to do. I have on there too our Shop Small passport that we did for Shop Small Saturday. Black Friday, Shop Small Saturday are big retail days for us, hoping to keep that percentage to continue to be higher year over year for our local sales tax. And we're also doing an online winter farmers market. It's an extension of kind of how we started the farmers market season. Our face-to-face market is closed. We're doing an online market, which is the Monroe fm.locallygrown.net. It's just a way for our local farmers and artisans to keep selling to the public. And so many things have shifted to additional omni-channel kind of sales for our vendors and retailers. It's just one more example of that. The magical lights are up in Childers. They look amazing. We had a very large crowd parade through. It's kind of steady stream of people all on the 21st, all that Thursday or Tuesday evening when we did it. It was great. I guess it was the 24th. We had to shift it. But so that was great. They're still up. People are enjoying it. We're excited about that. And the last thing is this Thursday is our Christmas parade in place, our strange 2020 version of our Christmas parade. We're excited about it. We'll have just over 30 different floats and entries, and they'll be along Broad Street. We'll have the street shut down, and people can move at their own pace and look at everything, and hopefully just have another way to usher in the holidays and the best season that we have downtown. So be happy to answer any other questions you might have about anything else on the report.
Sadie, how are you marketing the Winter Online Farmers Market?
We've done social media posts and through our farmers market Facebook page, downtown Facebook page, and our downtown newsletter. So and all of our vendors that were established on the online market have their customer base, and so we've emailed all previous customers that have ever ordered on the online market.
Any other questions for Ms. Crosby? Not? Then I'll conclude it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ross. Moving to Ms. Crawford, Parks.
Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, ma'am. Quick thing I wanted to make note of, our website, we have updated a lot of our parks pages. It'll be under the departments page as we kind of redevelop, refocus what's at each park. We've done a little bit of historical research, and then we're explaining the process kind of what we're going through, along with changes to be expected. So that's kind of a unique way to learn a little bit about the past and see what's coming in the future. Matthews Park has taken quite a transformation in the last month and a half. Additional playground equipment, we've painted the pavilion, a couple of other signage areas, put the new sign at the road. We're going to landscape around that. We're awaiting the build, essentially, of the restroom, which will be delivered as a unit built in place. At this point, we're hoping sometime in January. They're kind of really can't give us a timeline other than they expected it to be 60 to 90 days, and I'd say we're probably day 85, give or take. And the other thing, Ms. Krosick mentioned, Childress Park, all the lights are up thanks to streets, stormwater, central services guys put in a lot of man hours, split time with a tropical storm, I think depression that came through too. The new dam, or the reworked dam held, and our pond is still ponding, and it's dyed blue and has a fountain that lights up in it now, working properly. So the bridge is back open, so everything's looking great, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
I thought that I read that Pilot Park is going to have some element of a community garden. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does over to the side. There is a little, probably 1/10 of an acre section that's fenced off kind of to itself that has the above-ground beds that volunteers and is the Master Gardeners, I believe, that has, they participate, put things together there. So, yeah.
How do other people become involved with that if they want to just contact?
Yeah, just contact Master Gardeners or get with Sadie. That was probably the easier answer, get with Sadie.
There you go, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Looks great out there.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Items for discussion, public hearing rezone, 1,000 Highway 138. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This applicant is requesting a rezone of sorts, basically to just reconfigure a planned commercial district / planned residential district. They want to have a new configuration, but have it remain a mixed plan development. And basically, it's been dormant for about 14 years. And with the, just as a background says there, with the changing economic development patterns, the applicant believes that the changes requested would make this a more viable project in the near future. So they're basically just moving the pieces around with the same functions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick?
I will note that I've been back and forth with the applicant on some conditions that I think we'd all enjoy on this property. Just making sure it aligns with our zoning, and things like minimum sidewalk footages and screening, buffering. Looking at the front area of the PCD area, carving out things like vape shops and gas stations and things of that nature, making sure that that wouldn't be an applicable use in the PCD. square footages, roof pitches, so on and so forth. But it's kind of been a back and forth, and I think we're in a pretty agreeable point right now, and I'm sure the applicant will discuss that a little bit more in detail next week.
Perfect. Are there any more questions for Mr.
We can
Kelly?
add
Mr. Probst?
those conditions at the time when you're planning to vote on it next week. And I did fail to mention that the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission was for approval as well. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Thank you. Next, excuse me. Next, Patrick, 302 Michael Etchison Road, please.
Sir, thank you again. This is actually the same applicant, both these are Reliant Homes. And they've also had this PRD zoned for approximately 4 years in its current configuration. And they're not making any changes to the configuration or the use. They just wanted to have the age restriction removed from the conditions of the rezone, believing that the current market would allow for better marketing to a wider purchasing audience.
And Planning Commission. Thank you. Moving to 249 Boulevard, public hearing variance. Patrick.
Yes, sir. And this one is a variance request for 249 Boulevard to subdivide a parcel into 3 non-conforming lots by varying Article 7, Section 700 and Table 11, which is basically the R1 lot frontage minimum. The background is considerable there, what I've written up, and I don't know if you've gone over it. I'll be happy to answer any questions in regards to it, but basically the synopsis of it is the development pattern has been established over time to larger lots than the original Monlin subdivision. And the variance is requesting approximately anywhere from 30 to 45% variance on our lot frontage on 2 lots. And as I said, it'll take a conforming lot and divide it into 3 non-conforming lots. And the average lot width over the time that the neighborhood's been developed has established significantly more than what's being requested. So the recommendation of staff and also of Planning and Zoning Commission was for denial of the variance.
There've been a lot of things going on Boulevard with Mr. Holder moving pieces and houses and properties around. I would encourage you to all go take a look at that over the coming days to discuss. Are there any more questions for Patrick?
If I have a couple of more minor points, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Typically, variances are reserved for minor variances that are based on topography or geography of the site, or specific to that site. One of the conditions for consideration is whether or not it's been created by an act of the person who's requesting the variance, which this is 100% created by that action, and it's a large variance. So that was kind of the consensus at the planning and zoning level, that it was a little bit too much of an ask as far as the variance goes. It wasn't the minimum that would allow it to be economically viable.
Thank you. Did you have a question, Mr. Bradley?
Yeah, I mean, just a comment, I guess, and I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear the last things that Mr. Kelly said, but Mr. Kelly and Mr. Probst and I have been having conversations about another issue with code, but zoning and things, but I guess I thought a lot about this recently. I think we adopted code for the betterment of the city overall, but I think at the same time we do that, as a council, we have to realize that this same code is not always applicable depending upon the location and other surrounding areas. I appreciate what Mr. Kelly said on all this, because I think what we have him doing is looking at code and pointing out places where there are exceptions to the code. But I think at the same time, it's incumbent upon us as a council to look at each individual case that comes before us for a variance and say, how does it apply in this particular case? How does the request apply? Not necessarily what is it a variance from code, but is it in the best interest of the community, best interest of the neighborhood, whatever. And I know we'll get into more of this next week, but if we're gonna do it virtually, it makes it more difficult, so I wanna just make a few comments. Our Boulevard's part of my district, and as most of you know, over the last few years, we've had more than one controversial issue over there. And we probably will have some others, but I look at that neighborhood, I don't think there's, well, I'm not gonna say that. I don't think there are not very many, if any, 100-foot lots in the neighborhood. Most of them are smaller. These proposed here may even be somewhat smaller than the average, but they're not totally unique in themselves. And I think what we looked at from a inner city, in-town development, this would fit into it because I think it does give us smaller lot sizes, more walkability, and we need to look at those kind of things. I just think we need to really look at all of our variants to code as to how it fits in a neighborhood. And this just being one of them, and I'm not get too much on this, but as I look at the way we're applying code throughout the city sometimes, we have to just be real careful as a council that we don't override property rights of individuals, that we look at what's in the best interest of that particular project for that particular neighborhood. And that's what I would encourage people to do on this particular one. Thank you.
Let me have a quick question, Mr. Kelly. What was the recommendation?
The recommendation from staff and from planning and zoning was for denial. And I would point out too that the zoning ordinance does have standards for variance application decisions. That's also listed in your packet, and those are the 8 items that you're supposed to give weight to in granting a variance. And also in protecting people's property rights. The people that are there with an established lot frontage and a development pattern that they bought into and lived by for quite some time needs to be preserved in order to preserve their rights as well. They may not even know what this variance is about.
My next question would be to Mr.
They could be negatively impacted without their knowledge.
Are you saying that you think that's something that we need to look into about approving it?
Yeah.
I think we've beaten that one for the week, but we'll revisit, or we will officially visit next week. Moving to appointments of the Downtown Development Authority and Convention and Visitors Bureau Authority and Urban Redevelopment Agency. We do have 2 seats available on those boards. Wesley Sisk's and Andrea Gray's terms will expire on December 31st of 2020. Both have confirmed that they would like to be appointed to another 3-year term. And we will do that next week. Resolution for the 2020 budget amendment. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. These are the budget amendments that we have as of right now for the 2020 general fund budget. As you all know, when we try to work on budgets, it is mainly just an educated guess on historical numbers, and sometimes those come in over budget or under budget, and we have to come before you to get those amendments approved to move between departments. These are all actually positive budget amendments that increase revenues or have offsetting revenues that offset, or increase revenues that offset the expenses in each of these areas. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to go over them. But these are just for your approval to balance the budget in the general fund as it stands now, be in line with our financial policies at the City of Monroe as well as the state of Georgia. And also keep in mind, once we close out financials at year end, we may have some other budget amendments but to move around, but hopefully we won't have very many after doing these.
Any questions for Ms. Thompson?
I have a question. You're asking for, what are you actually asking for tonight?
The budget amendments that are here, we have to have the resolution approved for these budget amendments that are attached to increase the revenues and expenses in each of those line items.
So everything you got on that paper need to be,
It's because it's going between, if we increase the budget, it has to come before y'all for approval. Or if we move expenses between departments, we have to come before y'all for approval. We can't do that as staff. And all of these are increasing revenues and expenses. In other words, like, we're increasing sales tax dollars because we've received more than what was budgeted, what we had planned on for the 2020 budget, and therefore some offsetting expenses for that. We received federal CARES money that we weren't obviously know about this time last year. So we're increasing the budget for a portion of that to offset some offsetting revenue or expenses for hazard pay and COVID expenses that we incurred in the general fund.
how much you increasing it in total?
I'd have to add it up real quick. I have them split out. For the federal CARES money, we're increasing it $267,002.70. For the sales tax, local option sales tax, it's $115,570.13. For the federal HIDA grant, it's $15,000. And for the capital lease proceeds for the police department is $783,432.16. And then there's just a moving between the police department and finance where I had budgeted in the police department, and then after reading over how capital lease should be budgeted, we're moving that to finance, so that's just moving from one department to another. And the capital lease proceeds, this is a GASB 87 ruling that came into effect in December of 2019 after the 2020 budget was already adopted. And anytime you have a capital lease, you have to record the debt proceeds and the capital expenditure at the inception of the capital lease. And so that's just an increase in revenues and increase in expenses to offset those.
So everything we looking at in blue is the number that you're trying to increase everything by, basically?
That yeah.
But of that, the money from the CARES Act was income, and the money from the,
Sales tax.
right, was income.
And the HIDA is also income.
Right, that was the one.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, every expense is offset.
That's what I'm saying. It's not really a negative effect on our budget because we're increasing revenues as well.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Ms. Thompson? Moving to the first reading of the Personnel Policy Ordinance Amendments regarding appeal and grievance procedures. Mr. Probst.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something we touched on at the budget meeting a couple weeks ago. But also, just a revision we've been talking about for a while, but we've just finally gotten around to doing it. It's to more efficiently and effectively handle employee appeal and grievances. So basically, it creates a more structured, tiered and review process. And this basically would be like a level 1 dispute would involve an informal dispute resolution with department heads and supervisors. Level 2 would go up to review by Human Resources Department. Level 3 by city administrator or designee. And then, probably most importantly, there would be a public hearing officer position created. That'd be a designee that mayor and council would assign the duties of, and that would basically take the place of city council acting as the body of the grievance committee, which is a little bit odd in the realm of local government. I don't think you see that too often. But this PHO would be a licensed attorney with a minimum of 10 years practice and experience in personnel cases and handling these types of issues. So this would be a highly qualified individual, and it kind of almost acts as a extra balance and almost a free attorney in one way for the applicant or the appellate here. So it just kind of streamlines it, more professionalizes this, and also can kind of take the politics out of, some awkward situations.
The PHO, is that, obviously wouldn't be a full-time position, so is that just an appointed?
This would just be appointed and, subject to a contract term of, an hourly rate for their services.
It would only be if they were needed.
Only if they're needed, right.
But I think, I was trying to remember now, in the 9 years I've been on council, I think we've had it come to us twice. If I remember correctly, so it's not
something that.
not something that happens very often, but, I think we've had 2 in 9 years.
And we'll
So
do,
what would be the need to have it then? Since you, like you said, you only did 2 in 9 years. So what is the purpose of this? Explain that to me.
Well, I mean, I think the general purpose is to basically streamline the appeal and grievance process. Again, it takes some of the politics out of dealing with personnel issues from a council level. It even kind of removes it from me at another higher level, takes it out of HR's hands. You have an experienced personal hearing officer professional who can handle this type of engagement. It's just a more efficient manner. Also, it kind of takes it out of the public spotlight. I don't think a lot of the employees would realize that when they do file for an appeal or grievance, that everything becomes public record at that point in a public forum.
It really seemed like this what you've been trying to do for the last 2 or 3 years, to be honest. You're trying to take stuff out of the council members' hands. For what reason, I don't know. But if Larry's saying it's only happened twice in 9 years, it's kind of hard for me to think somebody going out looking for a reason that something wouldn't come to the council. If it ain't only came twice in 9 years, that don't really make a whole lot.
Well, I did get some feedback from the last one that we had from several members, and they wanted a different path.
If I can just interject here, this structure is a very common structure. This is, I would say, less of getting it out of y'all's hands, but more of modernizing our personnel policies, because this is a very standard way that governments handle employee grievances and appeals. It takes the politics out of it, and that's not just about from y'all's perspective, but that's also from the legal protection perspective, that the decision is being made by an unbiased third party that is appointed by you. You still will appoint this PHO. The mayor, the way that the ordinance is drafted, excuse me, the changes are drafted is that the mayor and the city administrator make a recommendation for an appointment of this PHO, who is a licensed attorney, will offer some recommendations of some names. It probably would be an attorney out of Athens or Lawrenceville, most likely. We would not have a local attorney, most likely, someone who regularly handles employment law matters. And this is a very standardized way of handling employee appeals and grievances within municipal governments and county governments. So it's really less about taking away control from y'all, but really from our perspective, and Les could probably opine to this too if he wanted to on HR, modernizing your personnel policy to come more in line with what most other local governments are doing, because it's found to be the most efficient way and the most, what I would say, most fair and impartial way, because then the decision is being made by this appointed PHO that while they're being compensated and paid by the city, their job is really to be essentially a third-party decision maker that has no ties to either the city or the employee. I'll be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
You don't think if you paying somebody, then their first and foremost feelings will be toward the one that actually paying them?
No, sir, I don't, because I view this personnel hearing officer to be very much akin to a judge who has over 10 years of experience as an attorney, and they have taken not only an oath to keep that bar card, but their own ethical obligations are that they're going to, and specifically being hired for this position, would be to be unbiased. It happens regularly all day when you have mandatory arbitration panels, mandatory judicial, quasi-judicial panels similar to this, where there is somebody paying for that position, but at the end of the day, they're making an unbiased, third-party neutral decision. So no, it
My
is not.
next question would be, have y'all already talked to someone about this?
I have not.
So is the understanding that each time you have an incident happen, that's when you bring in someone and we appoint them from that place? Is that correct?
No.
No, it would be a one-time appointment.
Yes, it would be a one-time appointment. The way it's drafted is every 4 years, and that person, that PHO, is really at the very end of the list. So just so that you understand, this new structure, it has similarities to our prior structure, but is a whole lot cleaner and a whole lot more efficient. The first level is essentially the direct supervisor and department heads, an informal process for that matter to be addressed there. Then the second tier is to the HR director. Then the third tier is to the city administrator. And then if the employee is still not satisfied, still aggrieved, then they can appeal that final resolution from the city administrator to this PHO. And it is still a public hearing. There's nothing behind doors. It is still an open meeting. They have an opportunity to present evidence, and it still is conducted like any other hearing to afford them the appropriate substantive and procedural due process rights for their decision that they're appealing or grieving.
Would the discussion be in front of council or no?
No, it'd be in front of the PHO.
And open to the public, so anybody that wants to can.
Yes.
And does that give us any kind of legal, does that protect us in any kind of way legally? Is the decision better? You know, is it more covered so that it's not able to be attacked in such a way, but it's seen as more fair and just and that sort of idea, or?
Our advice from city attorney's office is that yes, because see, when you get into hearings in here, you even have this extra layer, for instance. One of our obligations as city attorney, while all of you have the authority to make questions as to the conduct of hearings under Robert's rules, our job is to make sure that you're conducting hearings and meetings properly. So even within the context of an appeal or a grievance that you've had to hear previously, we're sitting here in our position in a very precarious role because we represent the city. We don't represent that aggrieved employee, yet we're also trying to make sure and manage the hearing and the process so that it's conducted fairly. So absolutely, my legal advice and my counsel advice to this council is that having this PHO as a third-party individual who is hearing the case is it gives you much cleaner lines in terms of making sure that any further appeal decision from his or her decision up to the court system would actually have the potential of withstanding better scrutiny than a decision made by you guys here at this council. So absolutely, it's a positive from our perspective in better protecting the city and decisions made relative to your employees.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Rosenthal and Mr. Probst? That will come before us next week. Now, I do have first reading. Next week, we'll do the first reading, and then we'll do the second reading in January, or do we do
That's
the
correct.
first reading tonight?
No, we'll do the first reading next week and the second reading at the regular meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. Moving to adopt the 2021 council meeting schedule, Mr. Probst.
Before you is the adoption of the 2021 meetings. You'll notice it's 2 per month other than July. So you'll notice we'll have the regular meeting on July 6th. And other than that, it's pretty standard business as usual.
Are there any questions for Logan?
I don't have a question specific to those dates, but just to the makeup of the meeting, just a question, I'm just curious from other council members. When we have public hearings on an issue, typically what happens is we do that, the second Tuesday, we have the public hearing, and as soon as the public hearing's over, it comes to the council for a vote. And I guess I just wondered what y'all's thoughts were, if that public hearing should be the first week, so we can listen to what the public has to say and give some thought to things before we vote on it the following week. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. To me, I think sometimes, Rhonda, we've had instances where we've had a public hearing and, you know, people bring up pros and cons of a particular project, and then as soon as they sit down, it's up to us to vote. I don't think we've had time to absorb everything sometimes. I guess that's just a question.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I agree.
Would you still have to, I don't know what the rules, would you still have to hold that same public comment on the second week?
I think you just have to advertise it to be the first Tuesday instead of the second Tuesday, right?
We can look into that. Under ZPL, I don't think we'd have a problem with it. We just have to change some advertising and some timing issues with the code office. I want to check one thing on the reality that that's a called meeting versus a regular meeting. That may affect some of your public hearings that you have to have. I don't think it would affect the ones that you're most concerned with, which are these zoning hearings. So if that's something y'all are interested in doing, it probably can be done. We would just need to double check a few things, and then we could bring it to Mr. Probst, and then he could take it from there, and you can start adjusting it. It will definitely require some processes adjustments with Mr. Kelly's office. But let us just.
Probably the P and Z meetings.
Well, it's all your timing issues to get inside 1545. It's a real tight window to get your meetings lined up correctly. Let us just do a little bit of double checking, and if that's the council's desire, we certainly can adjust that process.
That wouldn't be anywhere in the charter.
No, it would not. There's just some public notices that are called to be at regularly scheduled meetings, and technically your called meeting is not a regular meeting because your regular meeting is your charter meeting. So we can do a little bit of checking, make sure it's right, but there's no reason why you can't. You would have a public hearing on your first Tuesday. Then the matter would come up for your decision, on the next Tuesday. The only other caution, just to process through and think through, is then people are still going to want to talk at that meeting. And technically, when the matter is before you for discussion, it is not for their discussion, it is for y'all's and how y'all balance and address that. I would not recommend 2 public hearings because then your advertising would be problematic. We already over-provide public hearings by providing 2. We provide one at planning and zoning and one at the council meeting, which ZPL actually doesn't require. We could get away with just one, but to give everybody that's concerned about a hearing or an issue, a zoning issue, we give 2, one at planning, zoning, one here. But certainly something we can look into for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Moving to the mayor's update, just a couple of things. And I appreciate the way the entire team worked through what we'll call COVID round 1, keeping the building closed, taking extra precautions with our public safety departments. And we have a lot of jealous other cities with the way we've pulled off and pulled together our events. And it's really been something to behold. I played some phone tag today with Larry Ebert from the hospital. We're still, per Department of Public Health, under 3,000 cases per 100,000 people, which is great, probably in the lower 25% of the state. And I think that goes to basically worldwide caution of, hey, wash your hands, socially distance. If you choose to wear a mask, definitely do that around the older folks or those who have immunocompromised positions. We've gone back to standard COVID protocols here, and I think next week we're going to Zoom the meeting. And hopefully we'll be back live the following month, but we'll take every precaution that is recommended by our public health team and the team at the hospital. Another thing, I just want to say happy birthday to Larry. If y'all choose to sing, you may, I won't. Hope you have a great day, man.
Mr. Mayor, does that mean, you said next week the meeting will be Zoom call?
Yes, sir.
This meeting?
Yes, sir. So if you want to call in from the beach or wherever you might be.
Welcome, sit right here in this chair.
I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.